Nobody does it better than the French, I think, because there is nowhere else in the world where food and cooking is such a daily and important part of people's lives. I've been in Paris for over 20 years now, and although I think I'll never be completely Parisienne, let alone French, the great thing seems to be that the French have adopted me, probably because I'm so crazy about food and eating, and I think they like that when they see people who come from abroad who just embrace everything that they like. I've had no formal training whatsoever. I've just cooked a lot, and I've cooked a lot as a way to, at the start, be accepted into a French family. And I've now written 9 books, 9 cookery books, written for the French market. The bestseller is one called Je veux du chocolat, I want chocolate. I think I've built up an ability to decode and demystify a lot of the stuff that other countries find quite daunting. I love France and I love French food, and I hope by the end of this series you will too. When I first came to Paris around 20 years ago, with my own mother at home in Belfast, I was terrified by the confidence of my new French friends as they brought beautiful meals to the table. It seemed they learned how to prepare their perfect soufflés, soups and stews at Maman's knee as they were learning to read and write. So let's take a look at the influence of Maman on French cuisine. Atelier des Chefs is a cooking school with a difference. It's a new and very successful venture, and its whole premise is that many of the busy working people of Paris have somehow slipped through the culinary net. It's the middle of the day, and these people, mostly office workers from around the neighbourhood, have found the perfect way to while away the lunch hour.
Alors la particularité des carottes fan, du gingembre et du citron. Un bon morceau de saucisse.
I'm curious to see how Atelier des Chefs will rescue these unfortunates from their very un-French plight in the very short time they have available.
Qui s'harmonise entre la carotte. Donc ici on a les cristaux de sel.
Nicola, what exactly is Atelier des Chefs?
L'Atelier des Chefs is a new generation of cooking classes. Basically, cooking classes used to exist before we launched our concept in July 2004, but all cooking classes were very long, very expensive, and very complicated. We wanted youngsters to come to us, young people, working people, I mean the people don't have a lot of time, a lot of money, to have the opportunity to live the experience of a cooking class. It's meeting people, cooking together, eating together, spending good time together, and enjoying the rediscovery of cooking together.
Alors bien sur le côté ici, pourquoi? Parce qu'on va saisir cette face-là.
Today is a simple meal of braised beef with spring vegetables.
Dans un premier temps, vous mettez un bon trait d'huile d'olive.
But Maman would never approve of this over-enthusiastic use of olive oil. This excellent braising pan is not, as the chef points out, a deep fat fryer.
C'est pas une friteuse, hein.
Why Paris? Everybody knows how to cook in France.
That's a reputation that we have. I mean, we've been living on our reputation in France for a couple of years, but you discover that a lot of people between 25 and 40, they don't know even how to boil an egg.
Why?
Because basically, the last generation of women has started to work, so they've not taught their daughters how to work, how to cook.
I see.
And now the daughters, they're 30 years old, and they come to us and say, I don't know how to cook. So we've got to teach them. And a lot of guys too. I mean, now they live alone a little bit longer. They like the fact that they could cook a little bit, so they come to us as well.
The enthusiastic young chef is keen that his students should indulge an artistic side. Very artistic. Sadly, the students don't all manage the perfect Picasso, but the evidence is shortly to be destroyed. It's time for them to consume the fruits of their labour. This is a very special class. This is the signature class from Atelier des Chefs.
Yeah, this is really the signature class. Half an hour you cook, that's at lunchtime. Half an hour you cook, half an hour you eat, and then you go back to work. Why? Because all these people between 20 and 45 years of age, they work, they don't have a lot of time to spend in a cooking class, so it's got to be fast, it's got to be easy, It's got to be very well organized so that it can take only 1 hour. And the most important point is that I want to make sure that everybody who comes to the class will feel that the day after they can redo the same recipe at home.
As far as price goes, it's very competitive. It's about the price of a good bistro lunch in the area.
Yes, it is. For 15 euros, you're going to have your class, you're going to have your lunch, and you're going to spend good time.
Diana, you've been here a few times. What made you want to come?
I read an article in the Financial Times in London, written by the Paris correspondent. And I just thought this must be fun.
Yeah.
So I tried it. Enormous fun. Excellent value, and it's very convivial. Even if you are not a great cook, and I'm not at all, you always pick up little tips from the chef, and it's absolutely superb. You get far more pleasure from seeing it done in front of your eyes than you would get from just reading a recipe.
And when you've finished, are you off back to work?
Indeed I am.
Piperade is a Basque dish. It's perhaps one of the most famous dishes from the Basque country, which is in the southwest of France. And it's peppers stewed with garlic and tomatoes until they're really, really soft, and the taste is really intensified by it all being boiled down for about half an hour or so. And it's traditionally served with scrambled eggs and with lovely Basque ham. The most important ingredients are obviously the peppers. So all we need to do is just slice these and cut them into strips. Now the purists, when they're cooking piperade, would only use green peppers, but I think that's a bit of a shame, and I like the red peppers in there and the tomatoes, obviously. Yellow peppers are completely banned, but if you wanted to go a bit more multicoloured and put yellow ones in, it would look nice. So you want about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, no onion in this, we just want the taste of the peppers. Then those get thrown in the pan with some hot olive oil. And then a little bit of tomatoes. So the purists would call for really, really ripe tomatoes, but secret ingredient is a tin of them. Because they have great taste, and they're already peeled, of course, which is wonderful. One of the things I like to add to my piperade is a famous Basque chili called the piment d'Espelette. And it's a lovely, soft, smoky pepper, not too hot. French don't like their food too hot. It gives a great taste to the piperade. And then when that's cooked, just about 3 or 4 minutes before you're going to serve, you make scrambled eggs. Gives us a light whisk, a little bit of milk. I always put some milk in my scrambled eggs, like we used to at home. And into the pan. And the piment, the chili, I put it in, a little bit in at the beginning when the peppers are starting to cook, and then a little bit to taste at the end, and a little bit over the eggs as well, which give it a lovely little red dusting before I serve the whole thing. And it's also served with some lovely ham from Bayonne. Now, again, it's up to you. You can either serve it cold, or you can get thicker slices and grill it or fry it and serve the whole thing warm. It's a really rustic, nourishing dish, but also it's a really practical thing because it feeds legions of people. It's quite rich and a great dish to serve when you need a bit of vitamin boosting after a late night the night before. And there you have your piperade. This store, Magasin Delerain, has been trading in Paris for over 150 years, selling all manner of kitchen materials. It was built on the corner of Rue Poissonnière in the 1st arrondissement, just down the road from the famous, but now sadly destroyed, food market of Les Halles. It's the area that Émile Zola called the belly of Paris. Tricky enough to find, but well worth the effort. Walking through this magical treasure trove of a shop is like taking a step back in time to the 1850s when Parisian chefs started coming here. And although you won't be needing one of these or one of these, you're sure to find the basic essentials to equip your kitchen like any French cook. First of all, find yourself some really good knives. Something like this is a bit extreme. I think you really only need 3 to start off with. Something with a serrated edge for soft fruit and slicing tomatoes. And then one of these, this is called a couteau d'office, and it's very handy for getting into all the little nooks and crannies. You press down in the blade with your finger. And finally, what they call the chef idéal, the ideal knife, according to how heavy you like them. This is a 23 centimetre blade, and this is for cutting everything else, from carving chicken to chopping potatoes. Oh, you'll be needing one of these. It's a vegetable ricer. This is the way the French make those lovely smooth purees, by pushing the vegetables or the potatoes through the bottom. And it makes them really regular and not too compact. Here are the pots and pans. This is an absolute essential, a very heavy cast iron frying pan, which caramelizes the food beautifully. And of course, a big pot for cooking pot-au-feu, or soups and stews, preferably in stainless steel and not aluminium that we still find a lot of in France. This is what I've been looking for. This is a stainless steel cul de poule, chicken bottom bowl, and it's absolutely perfect for whisking up egg whites and making things like hollandaise sauce or anything that you need to emulsify. It's really good stainless steel, great quality, and obviously practically round on the bottom, so you can whisk really regularly. So I'll need a whisk, of course, with that. There's some over here. Not too big, not too small. This one will do. Oh, and these. Right. These haven't been around since the 1850s. They're really quite a new invention. They've been used by pastry chefs for about the last, 7 or 8 years. And they're made of silicone, and they are absolutely wonderful because they can go from the freezer to the oven. And you can see all the different shapes. You can make all these little French cakes. This is for cannelé. That's what they look like when they come out. And this one for madeleine. In fact, mini madeleine, aren't they cute? And this one's for, it's called a savarin. You could also make rum baba in there. And probably the most useful, the one I use the most, is just the simple sandwich tin. So you don't need to grease or flour the tin, and you can turn them out really, really easily. All this browsing has put me in the mood for cooking, so time to go home and get started. One recipe that every mother would pass on to the next generation of cooks is the classic pot-au-feu. Pot-au-feu means a big pot which cooks on a fireplace, and it's one of the most ancient and traditional dishes that the French cook, and everybody seems to know pot-au-feu. It's practically everybody's favourite dish. It's pure comfort food, and it's a dish that my mother-in-law taught me how to cook when I first arrived in France. And I find it quite ironic that they make fun of us for boiling meat, boiling beef and chicken and ham. And in fact, this dish is just that. It's boiled beef, but boiled in a really, really tasty stock. For pot-au-feu, the first thing you need is a really big pot. One that's big enough to house the meat and all the different vegetables that are going to go in there. Now, boiled up with the meat are a variety of vegetables. You certainly need onions. And just stud them with a few cloves. I'm going to leave the skins on because that makes the broth a nice deep colour. They go in there. Leeks, a little bit of celery would be good. Some turnips, celeriac can go in there too. Anything that's going to be able to boil for all that time, for 3 or 4 hours. Now, it's such a simple recipe, I don't need much concentration for this, so I think I'll just listen to some music while I'm doing the rest of it. All the ingredients just go into the big pot. They get covered with water. You put in a little bouquet garni as well, so some thyme and some bay leaf, just to give the whole thing a bit of taste. And you bring it to the boil, and a very important thing to do is to make sure that you skim off all the mousse and all the scum that can rise to the top of the pot as it's boiling. And the more you do that, during the time the pot-au-feu is cooking, the clearer the bouillon, the nice broth will be at the end. But the potatoes, I prefer to put those in just 20 or 30 minutes before the whole thing's ready, before you serve it, because that way they're firmer and they have a fluffier texture and a better taste, I find. Pot-au-feu is the most wonderfully comforting, nourishing dish. It takes a long time to cook. That's the whole point of it. It should be sitting on the corner of your stove for about 4 or 5 hours, so that you get a wonderful, deep, flavoured stock, and the flavour from the meat and the vegetables mingle with each other. And then the whole thing just gets served together. So there's lovely melting meat, which is served with the carrots and the leeks and whatever turnips and other root vegetables have gone into the broth. Potatoes, of course. And then the whole thing is livened up a little bit with some lovely mustard, some cornichons, which are like gherkins, and always, always a thing called gros sel, which is sea salt, big crystals of lovely, crunchy sea salt that go over the whole thing. And when it's served, it's usually served in 2 services. So you start off with a bowl of the broth, of the consommé, and then you move on to eating the meat and the vegetables after that. There we are, pot-au-feu. It's a feast for all the family. As the sun goes down on a beautiful day, I'm making my way across Paris to the fine modern apartment of the Lena family, where Marie-Do and her father Jean have been mining their family history. He and his daughter have now published them in 2 beautifully reproduced volumes. Marie-Do, I have quite a few recipes that have been handed down to me from my grandmother, but in the Lena family, it goes much further back. How important is that to you?
The importance, we feel it every day. My father comes from a family who spends time eating. And they were nice enough, his mother, his grandmother, his great-grandparents, to write things down.
Jean, why did you have the idea of writing them all down in a book? Where did that come from?
It's a long story. Back in French. Ma sœur, pendant la dernière guerre, suivait des cours de cuisine dans le bourg à côté de la maison.
My father's sister, during the war, was taking cookery classes. Of course, nobody believed her. They were really making fun of her. So she decided that she was never going to share anything that she had learned. She would cook, but she would never show the recipes, the actual recipes in the book. But when she turned 70, she asked my dad if he could teach her how to type on a computer.
Je lui ai dit, apporte-moi des textes et on va travailler sur ces
asked her to
textes.
bring whatever text she had.
The week after, she came with a very thick, very, very thick notebook, and she said, Jean, you never believe what I brought. Of course, he knew exactly. And this is how it all started. And this is what...
My goodness,
Yeah,
2
this is
volumes.
it, 2 volumes of these incredible recipes.
Jean, which is your favourite recipe from the books?
Le coq au vin. Une vieille recette de famille du XVIIe siècle.
Coq au vin from the 17th century.
This is the recipe. Look.
Wow. Oh, it smells fantastic. But the chicken's not from the 17th century, that you're saying? No. Fresher than that. It's gorgeous. Well, of course, from Cherizé, you're going to put a burgundy.
Of course.
And how long has this been cooking for, then? What's the recipe say?
It's been cooking twice, yesterday and today.
It's always better when it's heated
better
up.
the second time. You see how it detaches from the bone?
And what about the rest of the things on the table?
As long as he can remember, his mother, his grandmother, always served in these very special little dishes with the lid.
And those are from your great-grandmother?
Yes. Okay. And it's delicious.
That's delicious. As good as it was, as good as it ever been. Are there any recipes for frog's legs in there?
Oh,
Because
yes,
I know
there
you're
are.
specialist.
Yes, there are.
Catching
Not
them.
only do we cook the frog's legs, but we fish the frog legs. Huh? This is our summer activity, and August is the only month when you can actually legally catch them. So we take a piece of red cloth and we hook it on a hook, and then we make it jump on the top of the water like this, and the frogs think it's a fly.
All right.
And then all of a sudden they bite into it, and then afterwards we wait until we have lots, and then we prepare them, and all generations participate in the gathering of the frogs, and of course eating them afterwards. Very important too.
Well, today I think we'll leave the frogs dozing contentedly on their lily pads with their legs safely attached. The cheese soufflé, attributed in the book simply to Maman, can easily be put together and no animal will be harmed in the making of the dish. Soufflé is one of those mythically difficult dishes, and it's dinner party version where you would be extremely stressed to know whether or not it's going to rise and stay risen, and you have a very precise timing for your guests. Is something that I've never cooked and I think I never will. But the family version, which is really just a variation on boiled eggs or omelette, is nutritious, it's cheap, and again it's easy, and if it's just for the family it's pretty stress-free as well. This is not a performance soufflé, this is one for sustenance, and it's a recipe that my mother-in-law gave me. What I've done to start off with is to butter and flour these little individual ramekin molds and then pop them in the fridge for a little while. So first of all you make a roux, which is just cooking some butter and flour together in a pan, which is what you do to make any bechamel or any white sauce. And then you add some hot milk in there and give that a good stir so there are no lumps in the sauce. And then in goes the cheese, so a nice fruity, tasty cheese. And after that, you put in the egg yolks and stir those really carefully off the heat. We need 5 egg whites and 2 yolks. Put 2 of the egg yolks into the bechamel mixture while it's still warm. Give that a good stir, beat it up. Just set that aside while we whisk up the whites. The eggs need to be a soft consistency, like an Italian meringue, not too firmly beaten. So now the egg whites are beaten up, you put in just 1 spoonful just to loosen up the bechamel and cheese mixture. And then you can fold the other egg whites in more easily and do that in 2 or 3 goes. Just lifting the mixture over and around them and fold them in really, really softly so you don't lose any of the air. Soufflé, love it. So that's ready to go into the ramekins now. And then pour the mixture either into one big mould and make one big soufflé, which is the way my mother-in-law used to do it, or you can be a little less daring and put them into individual ramekin dishes. And you need to move quite fast so that the air doesn't come out of the soufflé. A good way of not making the soufflé stick to the edges and create a nice little hat when it rises in the oven is just to run your finger around the outside of the ramekin and just make a little indentation. That helps them rise. Don't lick your fingers. And if you're making the version where there's just one soufflé, you should cook it for about 20-25 minutes. Less time, obviously, if it's the little ramekins, probably about 15 minutes. And hopefully you'll have an oven where you can see through the door so you don't have to check on it, because you mustn't do that, because as you know, if you open the oven door, they'll fall flat and won't rise again. And I quickly get them to the table to be eaten as fast as possible. But I promise you it will work. It's a very easy and surefire recipe.